During my fiancée's sister's wedding, she caught the bouquet and humiliated me in front of everyone, saying she would never be with someone at my level. That very night, instead of the ring, I left her an empty box with a note that sealed the end of our story. "Hi, my name is Andrew. I am 29 years old. This all happened when I was 25. I work in commercial real estate, specifically in the development of warehouses and industrial facilities. It might not sound very exciting, but the $15,000 annual base salary plus commissions can easily raise my income to $250,000 in a good year. I live in a modern downtown Austin condo with a lake view. I drive a BMW M3, and in short, I had a pretty well-established life. I don't mention this to brag, but because these details become very relevant later on. I had been dating Natasha for almost 3 years. I met her at a friend's party during a 4th of July barbecue. She was beautiful, the kind who looks like she stepped out of a shampoo commercial, with intense green eyes and a flawless figure. She literally stopped traffic just by walking past. But from the beginning, there were signs I failed to read. She was overly interested in my job, my salary, the car I drove, where I lived, and my family's financial situation. Natasha worked part-time at a luxury boutique in an expensive part of the city, maybe earning $28,000 a year if she was lucky. But her lifestyle was that of someone easily making 6 figures. She always had the latest iPhone model, designer handbags, expensive clothes, monthly spa treatments, and impeccable nails every 2 weeks. And yes, I financed almost everything. I saw it as a way to care for and pamper the person I loved, a mistake that would cost me dearly. My best friend James never called her by her name. He always said gold-digging Natasha, and while it annoyed me at the time, now I understand how accurate he was. James is a great guy. He works in construction management and is very good at reading people. From day one, he told me, "That girl is going to empty your pockets and then leave you for someone with more money." He repeated it more times than I can count. I grew up listening to his warnings as background noise without taking them seriously. Natasha's sister, Clara, was marrying Stephen, a very prestigious lawyer, a senior partner at a high-level firm, owner of a Porsche 911 Turbo, and a $3 million mansion with a pool and tennis court. Literally everything Natasha thought she deserved. The wedding was at an exclusive private club that probably cost more than most people earn in 5 years. I had been planning a proposal for months. I already had the ring, a 2.5-carat princess-cut diamond in platinum valued at $16,500. To pay for it, I worked double shifts for 8 months. I sold my motorcycle, quit the gym, stopped going out with friends, and brought packed lunches every day. I wanted to do everything right. I planned to propose to her that same night after the wedding at our apartment. I had everything ready. Rose petals, over 50 candles, champagne, and even a 3-page speech I had memorized. During the reception around 9 p.m., I overheard a conversation that changed everything. I was returning from the restroom and walked past a large floral decoration that partially blocked my view. Behind it, Natasha was talking to her cousin, Danielle. "God, Clara is so lucky," Natasha said, visibly envious. "Did you see the ring Stephen gave her? That diamond must be at least 4 or 5 carats. And that new house in Westlake, $2.8 million, I looked up the price last night. Can you imagine living like that?" "What about Andrew?" Danielle asked. "You've been together for a long time. Do you think he'll propose soon? He seems serious about you." Natasha let out a laugh that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't a sweet or funny laugh. It was a cold, calculated one. "Andrew is sweet and he tries, but he's not high level, you know. He makes good money for a real estate agent, but I'm not ready to settle for good. I know I can aim for much more if I really try." My body froze. Settle for me. I gave her everything. I sacrificed time, money, and comfort. And still, I was just a temporary option for her. "So, what are you going to do?" Danielle asked, sounding uncomfortable. "I don't know. Maybe I'll stay with him for a while I see if someone with real money appears. I'm 24. I still have time to find someone who will give me a life where I never have to work again." I backed away in silence, my hands trembling. Everything James had warned me about for years was true. I was nothing more than a comfortable phase for her, a stepping stone. But I'm not someone who stands by and does nothing. If she wanted to play a game, I knew how to play too. And I was about to teach her a lesson. An hour later, during the reception, it was time for the bouquet toss. The DJ announced the moment, and all the single women gathered on the dance floor. Natasha, amidst laughter and jokes with her cousins and friends, tried to pretend she didn't care much, though it was obvious how she strategically positioned herself right where bouquets usually land. Clara, who looked spectacular in her $15,000 wedding dress, went up to the small stage they had prepared and, with her back to everyone, tossed the bouquet with a perfect curve. The bouquet flew through the air and landed directly in Natasha's hands, as if destiny were mocking me at the most ironic moment possible. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Clara was radiant, taking pictures with her phone. Natasha's mother burst into tears of emotion. All the family eyes were on us, clearly expecting something romantic to happen. Even the band started playing a soft ballad, as if anticipating a proposal. I was about 10 feet away, forcing a smile that felt like a thorn piercing me. The ring I had saved, valued at over $16,000, weighed in my pocket like a brick. The irony was brutal. Everyone expected an engagement just when she had made it clear to me that I wasn't enough for her, that she wasn't ready to commit to someone like me. And it was at that instant that Natasha looked at me with a strange, almost haughty expression, holding the bouquet like a trophy, and said in a firm voice, loud enough for half the ballroom to hear, "Don't even think about it, Andrew. I'm still a long way from settling for someone at your level." Everything stopped. The ballroom fell into complete silence. The band suddenly stopped playing. Conversations died down, and gazes fixed on us like knives. My mother's face across the room showed a mix of disbelief and embarrassment. My father was clenching his jaw so hard I thought he'd break a tooth. Some older relatives looked as if they had been slapped. James, standing next to me with a drink in his hand, muttered, "Holy cow." And even his whisper seemed deafening. The worst part was that Natasha showed not an ounce of remorse. In fact, she seemed satisfied, as if she had made a witty, applause-worthy remark. Her arrogant attitude was unsettling. It was as if she was proud to have humiliated me publicly. Still, with the calmest voice I could muster, I replied, "Thanks for making it clear, Natasha. Now I know exactly where we stand." The DJ, trying to break the uncomfortable silence, started playing music again. But the damage was done. The indiscreet glances, the whispers, the faces of scandal. It was all a disaster. Clara looked like she wanted to disappear from the embarrassment. Some even got up from their tables and left. The rest of the reception was torture. Several guests approached me, asking if I was okay with that look of pity that only makes everything worse. An aunt took me aside and asked if Natasha had been under a lot of pressure lately because that comment was nothing like the person she knew. James stayed by my side, cracking jokes to try and lighten the mood, but even his usual sense of humor couldn't save the night. When we finally found a moment alone by the bar, he asked, "What the hell was that? Did she really humiliate you like that in front of all your family at her sister's wedding?" "She did," I replied, strangely composed. "She did it without thinking twice." "So what are you going to do?" he asked, staring at me. I watched Natasha across the room. She was laughing, taking selfies with her friends as if nothing had happened. She was showing off the bouquet like a prize. "I'm going to give her exactly what she's asking for, James. Nothing more, nothing less." The drive back was the worst. She acted as if everything was normal. She was posting photos of the event, humming the song playing on the radio, completely oblivious to the bomb she had dropped on our relationship. "It was hilarious," she commented without looking up from her phone. "Clara was gorgeous. Did you see how much everything cost? The flowers must have been worth more than your car. And the sculptor, impressive. That man really knows how to treat a woman." Another stab, directly aimed at my lifestyle. I didn't say anything. I was driving with white knuckles from gripping the steering wheel so hard. "Yeah," I replied with a dry voice. A very revealing night. She didn't even notice the sarcasm. Once home, She went through her routine as if it were any other night. She removed her makeup with her expensive wipes, put on one of my old t-shirts, practically hers now, and got into bed. She started talking about workplace gossip, something about a coworker stealing a sales commission from another. "I'm exhausted," she said as she snuggled in, "but it was a perfect wedding, magical. I hope my turn for something like that comes soon." "Your turn?" I asked in a neutral tone. "Yes, when I find the right man, one who can really take care of me like I deserve, someone successful, who understands my needs." I watched her in silence. She was lying in my bed wearing my clothes in the apartment I was paying for, talking naturally about finding someone else to support her, because apparently I didn't measure up. "I hope you find him," I said in the calmest voice possible. She fell asleep in minutes. I suppose so much interest in finding a better match is exhausting. I sat in the dark for over an hour, watching her sleep while reviewing everything James had been warning me about for months. I began to see clearly everything I had chosen to ignore before. This girl had used me from the first day we started dating. I remembered all those expensive dinners where she mysteriously always forgot her wallet, the shopping trips where she frowned until I gave in and bought what she wanted, the rent that I had been paying almost entirely because every month, like magic, she couldn't cover her share, the car payments, her credit card debts that I ended up settling. It had all been part of her game to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford while looking for someone better. The more I thought about it, the more my anger grew. Not just about that night, but about the 3 whole years I ignored all the signs. The passive-aggressive silences every time I didn't indulge her whims, the direct comparisons to other men, those who earned more, those who had better cars, and me, there, believing we were building something real, when in reality, she was just squeezing me dry. Around 2 a.m., I had a plan perfectly formed in my head. I went to the kitchen, took the ring box out of the inner pocket of my jacket, sat at the table, and stared at it for a long time. Remembering the 8 months of extra hours I worked to pay for it, the homemade meals I prepared to save money, the outings with friends I declined to save, all that effort for someone who ultimately only saw me as another stepping stone. I opened the box, took the ring, and put it in the fireproof safe where I keep my most important documents. I left the empty box clearly visible on the kitchen counter, knowing it would be the first thing she saw when she woke up. Then, I wrote a note in my best handwriting on a random piece of paper. "I found someone at my level. I hope you find someone at yours too. Don't contact me." Immediately after, I started packing, but this time I wasn't preparing a suitcase to leave for a few days. I was leaving for good. There was one thing Natasha never bothered to find out. The apartment lease was only in my name. She always avoided getting involved in the paperwork. "You're better at those boring things," she would say. So, I started gathering everything that was truly mine. My gaming setup that I built piece by piece, my clothes, my papers, my family photos, the collection of antique watches I inherited from my grandfather, my books, my tools, everything that had sentimental value. Everything I had bought her over the years, I left behind. The designer handbags, the jewelry, the imported perfumes, the luxury coffee machine, the expensive facial care products. If she wanted to keep playing princess, she would have to learn to afford that style with her little part-time boutique job. And yes, I did a small, perhaps petty thing, but I don't regret it at all. I changed all the passwords for the streaming services: Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify, HBO, Disney. All were accounts in my name and charged to my cards. I also removed her as an authorized user from my credit cards and canceled the additional card she had. Small details, but they gave me a delicious sense of justice. Best of all, I had been looking at apartments closer to my office for months. I just hadn't signed anything because I still thought Natasha and I were serious. It turned out that exact place was still available, and when I called the landlord at 3 a.m. explaining that I needed to move as soon as possible, he happily accepted upon seeing my credit history. By 4 a.m., I had finished packing everything. I took one last look at the apartment, which would soon become a costly problem just for her, and left my keys next to the empty box in the kitchen. I called James at 5 a.m. At 6 a.m., he arrived with his truck, coffee, and a box of donuts. "Bro, this is the most brutal thing you've ever done," he said, laughing, as we loaded my gamer chair into the bed of the truck. "She's going to freak out when she sees what happened." "That's the goal," I replied, feeling freer than I had in years. "And what do you plan to do now?" he asked as we drank coffee. "Easy," I said. "Let her learn to live according to her own economic level. Let's see how long her attitude lasts when she has to pay her own bills." Around 11 a.m., the first messages arrived. I could sense the panic between the lines. "Where are you?" "Why is your clothes gone? What does all this mean?" I didn't answer. Part 1 of the plan. Total silence. 20 minutes later. "What is this empty box supposed to mean? Call me now. This isn't funny." Still no response. At that moment, I was already in my new apartment connecting my console and enjoying the tranquility. By noon, she was calling non-stop. Every call went straight to voicemail, but I saved them all. They were almost amusing. The progression of her voice from confusion, through anger, to desperation was revealing. "Andrew, what's wrong with you? You can't just disappear like this. I don't understand that stupid note. Call me now. This isn't funny." That desperate tone. I had never heard it in 3 years. She was no longer the sweet and nice fiancée. It was Natasha without the masks, haughty, demanding, and out of control because the safety net she had beside her had vanished. An hour later, another message. "Andrew, this is serious. Call me immediately. I don't know what game you think you're playing, but it's not funny. Did you really take everything?" And later, at sunset. "Okay, I'm genuinely starting to worry now. Please tell me you're okay. We can talk about whatever happened. We can fix it." That night, James came to visit again with pizza and fresh gossip from his network of relatives who always know everything before anyone else. "You won't believe this," he said, pulling out his phone with a huge smile. "Danielle called my cousin Helena, who called my sister Lucy, who called me. The whole extended family already knows what happened." "And what are they saying?" "Natasha arrived at her parents' house this morning crying like crazy, saying you had abandoned her and she didn't understand why. But that's not the best part. Clara is furious with her for ruining her wedding with that comment about the bouquet. She told her parents, and I quote, 'Natasha embarrassed the whole family with her gold-digger attitude.' I almost choked on my laugh. It turns out Clara had been observing her sister's attitude for a while and was already sick of me being the one who paid for everything in the relationship. And when Natasha humiliated me publicly at the wedding, Clara exploded. She told her parents that her sister needed to grow up and stop treating men like ATMs. She even said she was ashamed to be related to someone so superficial. It was better than I expected. Natasha hadn't just lost me. She was also losing the support of her own family. She had nowhere to go. The rent was due the following week, and she was nowhere near having enough money. She wrote to me saying, "I'm sorry if I said anything that bothered you at the wedding. The bouquet thing was just a joke. I didn't have any bad intentions. You can't just leave me without saying anything. We've been together for 3 years. That has to mean something, right?" That last part shook me inside. 3 years. 3 years in which I financed her lifestyle while she openly talked about finding someone better. 3 years of being her personal bank account while keeping her options open in case a wealthier guy showed up. But still, I remained firm and didn't respond. James, as always, constantly reminded me. She made her choice, bro. Now she has to live with the consequences. The second week was when everything started to get really interesting, and Natasha had to face the harsh reality. With the $28,000 annual salary she earned at the boutique where she worked, there was no way she could pay for the apartment on her own. The rent alone was $2,400 a month, practically her entire post-tax salary, not counting food, utilities, car, insurance, or any other expenses. Her messages became increasingly desperate and revealing. "Andrew, I beg you, help me. I can't pay this alone. Can we at least talk about splitting the rent until I can stabilize? I swear I'll pay you back. I had to ask my parents for money. Do you know how humiliating that is for a 24-year-old woman? Please tell me what I did wrong. I'll fix it. I'll do anything. I'll change. James kept me updated on all the family drama thanks to his network of gossipy relatives who enjoyed sharing information. Apparently, Natasha's parents agreed to help her with only 1 month's rent. After that, she was completely on her own. They were deeply disappointed with how she had treated such a kind and generous person and thought this was a good lesson for their daughter. And even better, the story had already spread throughout her social circle. Our mutual friends took sides, and most were on mine. Natasha started getting excluded from gatherings, parties, and meetings. She was becoming toxic to everyone. One of our friends commented to James, "She just complains about Andrew and asks if anyone knows any guy with money. It's pathetic and desperate." By the 3rd week, Natasha had no choice but to swallow her pride and move back in with her parents, a 24-year-old college graduate, moving back into her old room because she couldn't sustain her lifestyle on her own. The shame must have been devouring her inside. Her social media posts became increasingly bitter and passive-aggressive. Phrases about fake people, learning who your real friends are, and everything happens for a reason. She even posted a selfie in her old room with the caption, "Sometimes you have to go backwards to move forward. Blessed." New beginnings. The comments were mostly from her mother and some distant relatives trying to be positive. But the best was yet to come. The 2nd month brought an unexpected surprise that ended up being the funniest part of this whole story. Natasha started dating a guy named Ethan, whom she met at an elegant downtown lounge. Ethan drove a Mercedes S-Class, wore expensive suits, and acted like some kind of Wall Street executive. He spent money as if he were a millionaire. At first, I admit, it affected me. Had she already replaced me with someone truly wealthy? Had her strategy worked? But James, the master of digital investigation, worked his magic with social media and discovered some quite revealing things about this Ethan. "You won't believe what I found," he said, smiling as he opened his laptop. "Ethan is broke. He's a supposed cryptocurrency investor and stock trader, but he's neck-deep in debt. The Mercedes is leased with money he doesn't have. All his expensive clothes were bought with credit cards. He's bankrupt, but putting on a whole show. And how do you know all this? My cousin Helena works at the bank where he applied for a business loan. They rejected him because of his bad credit history. She says his score is so low they wouldn't even give him a secured credit card. And he owes over $80,000 across various cards." This was getting good. Natasha wouldn't stop posting on social media about her incredible new boyfriend and their costly dates, photos at luxury restaurants, weekend getaways, shopping at exclusive downtown stores. It all seemed like a blatant attempt to make me jealous. She posted photos with captions like, "When he treats you like the queen you are," or "Blessed to find someone who really knows what I'm worth, real Mindar luxury." She even posted an image of an expensive bracelet with the message, "Some men really know how to spoil their woman." For about 6 weeks, it seemed like Natasha had gotten everything she always wanted. Until Ethan's house of cards spectacularly collapsed, and watching it was an absolute pleasure. It turns out that when you're already maxed out on your credit cards, living paycheck to paycheck, and on top of that, dating a woman who demands fancy dinners, trips, and constant shopping, things get complicated very quickly. James got all the details through Helena, who heard it from several co-workers. Ethan's cards started getting canceled one by one. His car was repossessed while they were having dinner at a restaurant. When his apartment lease wasn't renewed, he had to move back in with his parents. His entire fake lifestyle crumbled in a matter of days. She broke up with him in the restaurant parking lot when his card was declined for the 3rd time that week, James told me, laughing. Helena found out from a friend who was the waitress that night. Natasha yelled furiously, calling him a fake and saying she couldn't believe she had wasted her time with another poor liar. The irony was perfect. She went from being with me, someone genuinely successful and stable, to Ethan, who only pretended and was ruined. And from there, back to nothing. All because of her excessive ambition and inability to value what she had. Her social media disappeared for a couple of weeks after that scene. When she reappeared, it was only generic motivational phrases. "Stay strong in tough times," Everything happens for a reason, and better days are coming. And here's where the story truly becomes satisfying, and why I waited 4 years to tell it completely. While Natasha was spiraling downwards with failed relationships and economic disasters, my life kept getting better. I was promoted to senior commercial broker. I started earning $240,000 a year plus commissions and closed a huge industrial development deal that gave me an $85,000 bonus in a single payment. I also started investing in rental properties. All the effort I had put in was finally beginning to bear fruit. My income was stable month after month, and that allowed me to start dating again. But this time with a different mindset. No rush and much more attentive to red flags. That's how I met a wonderful woman named Valerie. She is a specialized nurse at the Children's Hospital, and from the first moment, her independence struck me. She has her own apartment, her car, clear personal goals, and most importantly, she treats me like a partner, not an ATM. We've had 3 incredible years together, and recently we bought a beautiful house in the hills with a lake view, just outside Austin. Valerie is everything Natasha never was and could never be: independent, respectful, empathetic, genuinely interested in me as a person, and not what I had in my bank account. She supports my plans, values effort, and is involved in the relationship with the same commitment as me. When I told her everything that had happened with Natasha, she couldn't believe someone could be so superficial and cruel to someone they claimed to love. But the real satisfaction, the moment I wasn't expecting, but that arrived like a scene out of a movie, happened just a month ago. I was having lunch at a downtown cafe, reviewing some real estate development reports, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but the area code felt familiar. I was about to ignore it because I receive a lot of sales calls lately, but something made me answer. "Andrew." "It's me, Natasha." I almost dropped my sandwich in surprise. After 4 years of not hearing from her, she was calling me. Her voice sounded nervous. "I know this is really weird, but I need to talk to you. Could we meet? Please. I just ask that you listen to me." There was desperation in her voice, nothing like the confident, haughty girl who humiliated me at her sister's wedding. She sounded like someone completely broken, as if life had mercilessly crushed her. "All right," I said, intrigued. "How about the Starbucks on 6th Street? In an hour." I immediately called James to tell him. "You won't believe this," I blurted out. "Natasha just called me out of the blue, after 4 years. And what does she want? She sounds desperate. I'm going, but just out of curiosity. I'm intrigued by what she could possibly need now. Be careful, bro. She probably wants to reel you back in." I wouldn't let that happen in a million years, but I want to see how far this goes. An hour later, I was waiting at Starbucks. When Natasha walked in, I struggled to recognize her. She was no longer wearing designer clothes, but some worn jeans that looked like they were bought at a discount store and a sweater that had seen better days. Her hair looked like she had cut it herself with kitchen scissors. She had gained at least 30 pounds and looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept well in months. She was no longer the arrogant woman who rejected me for not being at her level. "Hi, Andrew," she murmured, sitting across from me. "Thanks for coming. I didn't even know if you'd answer my call." "No problem. What's going on, Natasha?" She took a deep breath, visibly nervous. "I'm in a very complicated situation. Since you left, everything has gone downhill. I can't find a job that pays enough to live. I'm drowning in credit card debt, and I'm about to be evicted again." "I'm sorry," I replied, not really feeling it. "I know I was terribly wrong. What I said at Clara's wedding was awful. I regret it every day. I was immature, arrogant, and I didn't appreciate what I had with you." "Uh-huh," I said, awaiting the inevitable request. "I know it's a lot to ask, but could you help me out financially? Just a loan to get out of this hole. I swear I'll pay you back everything with interest." There it was. The same person who despised me for 3 years, who called me a pastime to her cousin thinking I couldn't hear, was now begging me for money. "How much are we talking about exactly?" I asked. "I owe about $12,000 on cards. My rent is $100 a month, and I need money for food, gas." Let's say about $18,000 in total. $18,000, I repeated. That's curious? Wait. I took out my phone and showed her a photo. Do you know what this is? She frowned. A ring. Yes, the ring I was going to give you the night of your sister's wedding. The same night you said in front of everyone that I wasn't good enough for you. It cost me $16,500, almost the same amount you're asking me for now. Her face went white as a sheet. Andrew, I humiliated you in front of our families. I used you for years while looking for something better. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I beg you, I have no one else. Not even my parents want to help me. I stood up and looked her straight in the eye. You're right about one thing. You don't deserve my help. You said I wasn't at your level. Congratulations, you're finally with someone who is. I took a few steps toward the exit, but before leaving, I turned around one last time. Oh, and that ring? I gave it to Valerie when I proposed to her 6 months ago. She said yes, without hesitation, without conditions, without comments about my status. Interesting how things change when someone truly knows how to value what they have. I left her crying at the table in that Starbucks. James was waiting for me outside in his truck. I had texted him to pick me up, knowing I'd need to celebrate. So, how was it? Just as we imagined. She came to ask me for money. A lot of money. And did you give her anything? Yes, exactly what she deserves. Nothing. James high-fived me with a huge smile. Bro, that was poetry. Justice served ice cold after 4 years. 2 weeks later, a mutual acquaintance told me what had become of Natasha. After filing for bankruptcy, she had no choice but to leave the city and move to the home of a distant aunt in a small, forgotten town where life costs little, but also offers few opportunities. A bitter irony, considering that for years she believed herself to be above everyone, even me, for having standards no one could meet. The same person who once rejected my love for not meeting her demands ended up trapped by the consequences of her own decisions. I, on the other hand, returned home where Valerie was waiting for me with a smile and a prepared dinner. We sat on the porch watching the sunset from the hill, and for the first time in a long time, I felt complete peace, not for what I lost, but for everything I had gained. There was no need for revenge, just justice that arrived on its own terms and in its due time. Sometimes life doesn't need you to act. You just have to let time do its thing.